Well, I guess you can't keep reptiles anymore. Should we ban reptiles? Or do we need stricter laws? Or do we need to do nothing at all? This week, there's been a ton of talk. SB 906, the big scary letter number combination. If you're in Florida, or the US, or really anywhere in the world, and there's a reason that this, just because it's a Florida law, doesn't mean that it doesn't affect us here in Canada, or you in Sweden, I don't know, or somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, if there's a ban somewhere, everybody is watching, and then it's going to set a precedent. So today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of bans, not in detail, but do I agree with them? Do you agree with them? Should they be in place? And is there a perfect way to make sure that there is no invasive species problem, we're breeding things correctly, and with the best ethics, or is it kind of a lost cause? First things first, SB 906. I'm not going to go into detail about this. I don't have a place to. I've done a substantial bit of reading. I've watched a lot of videos about it. In a nutshell, this is a bill in Florida where they're trying to add to the banned species list, or the species that you're no longer allowed to keep, Argentine black and white tegus and green iguanas. And there might be other iguanas as well. Not sure. But iguanas and black and white tegus for sure. And this could cause some problems. I mean, there's a whole bunch of videos about this entire bill in its entirety, in detail, but it's not the first time, right? Reticulated pythons, Burmese pythons, there's already been a whole bunch of laws put in place where you're not allowed to keep these animals in certain places. And there's laws everywhere else too where you're not supposed to keep animals in certain places. If you're in Saskatchewan, you can't have ball pythons. Even though if you had a ball python out between November and April, it would be like a python sacol. It wouldn't even be like a living, breathing thing anymore. So some laws don't make sense, but I think to do a service, if you want to talk about it in broad terms, that's one thing. But if I were to sit here and look you in the face, and tell you, hey, this is the way that 906, SB 906 should be, or there's a Canadian law as well, which I get roasted on even though I don't talk about it, should I talk to you about these things if I'm not an expert? And the answer is no. So I think in order to have these conversations, know the bill, know the law, inside and out. Otherwise, you might spread misinformation, and all that's doing is putting the guys in favor who actually want to ban these reptiles in the first place or create stricter laws. And what I mean by that is, what is the bill actually? Because, and the reason I bring this up, this is super important, and you're going to read a lot of hate in the comments below. In Canada, we've also got this bill that is trying to outlaw or tighten up the laws on exotic pets, okay? Very important, exotic pets. People in the Canadian reptile trade on the Canadian Facebook groups don't like when I make videos about top 5 controversial reptiles, top 5 illegal reptiles, calling me every name under the sun that I can't repeat to you because apparently this is going to be in favor of the lawmakers because it's fear-mongering. And that's why it's important, because now, instead of banding together as a reptile community and trying to put our heads together and show unity rather than infighting, which just looks bad. If you see a bunch of people in one group or one hobby or, you know, one genre, niche, whatever you want to call it, that are just bickering back and forth with each other, it just looks stupid, and it doesn't help your cause at all. So, in this bill, SB 906, in the reptile community, I haven't found anybody who is for it for a number of reasons, but I guess that's my long-winded way to say, actually know what the heck you're talking about before you start going crazy this way or crazy that way. If you want to have broad conversations or, you know, general conversations about it, that's one thing, but like, don't pretend you're an expert if you're not. Okay, but should we ban anything anyway? Should there be any bans on any animals? In my opinion, no. I don't think so. I don't think we should ban anything. I think that there might be some species of animals that you should maybe need a permit for. And there's issues with that even, which we'll get to next. But I firmly believe if you ban one thing, if you give an inch, they will take a mile. I believe this with most laws. And I think with banning reptiles, I mean, if it's iguanas now and tegus, then, I don't know, what are they going to add next? Well, now you can't have red tegus. Now you can't have golden tegus. Even anoles, well, there's an anole problem. You can't have anoles. And at the end of the day, is that problem? It was the problem created by a bunch of people letting their animals go. Do you think that the entire problem in the Everglades, as an example, right now is because a whole bunch of people bought Burmese pythons, didn't know what they were, and let them go? Or do you think it's a bigger problem, like, say, Hurricane Andrew, where a research facility or several pet shops and facilities got blown apart, and now there's a bunch of pythons that are out? And I know people in the comments section of the last video I did about this said, no, that's not a true thing. Well, I don't know. Google is a really cool website, came out this year, and you should check that out because that definitely happened. Now, I don't mean to get super sassy about it, but I think at the end of the day, if I have a strong opinion about anything, I don't think we need more laws. I don't think we need more laws. What we should do instead, self-police. Now, this isn't just about invasive species or like these big lizards or big constrictors. What about things like ball pythons, silkback bearded dragons, stuff that we talked about in the controversial reptiles video, which a lot of people hated because they don't want to talk about anything controversial? I think that there should not be a ban for even these ones because, again, if they, where does it end? And I know that was Brian's thing, where does it end? But that's the one thing in that video I do agree with. And I think that personally, I have no interest in breeding silkback bearded dragons, and I have no interest in breeding enigma leopard geckos. And I think if it's cut and dry, black and white, it may hurt an animal to breed these two things. And there's certain genes that if you breed together, they are lethal. And if you see people breeding like this, let's self-police. There is room in life, in general, in society, for shaming people. And if you want to shame someone for what they're doing that is unethical, I think that's all right. If you don't want to buy from this person, if you want to blacklist this person from your reptile expo or this company because they're doing something that is completely not right or not ethical, right? Let's suppose that they're free handling venomous reptiles and they're promoting this. They're promoting the free handling of venomous reptiles. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, by the way. I think if you want to free handle venomous reptiles, you should be allowed to. There should be no law against that. But if you are promoting that you should do this or glorifying it, then yeah, I kind of have a problem with that. You probably shouldn't be doing that because not everyone is as skilled as you are or claim to be. And this is where it comes to like permits and registration and things like this. And just to tackle the one absolute, I don't agree with registration in most cases, simply because registration often leads to confiscation. And I know people always say, oh, it's a myth. Nah, it's not. It's not really. And if you don't believe me, well, there's a whole bunch of countries you can talk to, but other things like guns and a whole bunch of animals even, right? Since we're talking about that, where if something's registered, now the government knows you have it, and you're not doing anything illegal right now, but as soon as they decide that you're doing something illegal, now you have to give that up. And this can affect people's life just because it's a pet, right? I love my Burmese python, let's say, and now I have to give it up and it's going to be destroyed. Because a lot of the times, they don't tell you what's going to happen. So you don't know. If you give up your pet iguana or your pet tegu, you don't know if this thing is going to be destroyed. And that's especially true with this bill that's going on in Florida right now because they are not explicitly telling you what they're going to do with the animals if it were to come to that and if they were going to be confiscated, which is not something they said they would do. But that's the thing. If you have to give up an animal, like you don't want it to be killed. So now all of a sudden you've registered your animal, you're not doing anything illegal, great. I'm doing everything fine. But now the government decides that thing you were doing that's legal yesterday, it's illegal today. So we're taking away your stuff. We know you have it. You can either turn it in or you can turn yourself in because you're breaking the law. And that's where I've got a problem with registration because it turns law-abiding citizens into people who are no longer law-abiding citizens with just someone signing a piece of paper. Now, permits, I don't know, like my big thing is venomous reptiles, just for an example, okay? Because a venomous reptile, if I choose to have one, I choose to take the risk. I'm okay with that. I think you should be allowed to put whatever in your body that you want. You should be able to have whatever you want, do whatever you want, if it doesn't affect other people negatively. The problem is, if you live in an apartment, say, and you have a whole bunch of white-lipped vipers, king cobra, whatever, make it as glorious and fantastic as you want, and one of those things escapes, those people around you, and the unit around you, your neighbor, person who lives upstairs, person who lives downstairs, even if you live in a house, it gets out. If I'm your neighbor, I didn't sign up to take this risk. If we live in Ontario, say, Canada, here we don't have a law against this or permits needed in some places, I don't really want to take on that risk because you do. I don't have venomous reptiles because I don't think that I I don't want to incur the risk. I do not want to incur the risk of maybe getting bitten, especially where I am. I know my local hospital, although 5 minutes away, doesn't have antivenom. What do you do to treat snake bites if you don't have antivenom? I don't know, and I bet you they don't know either. Because I promise you, in medical school, if they did cover venomous snake bites at all in the Toronto University that they went to, or wherever, the Buffalo University that they went to, wherever around here, they probably didn't talk too much about viper bites from vipers that come from Africa, say, right? If you have a gaboon viper, chances are they just kind of glossed over that a little bit on the first day. They probably didn't go into depth, into detail, and that's why I think in very specific cases, maybe needing a permit might be a good idea. But again, then you give an inch, they take a mile, and I know this was a bit of a quicker video and just kind of me on my soapbox here, but I want to start a conversation. In the comments section, do you agree with any of this opinionated stuff that I just said? Or do you feel the other way? Because although I do have a strong opinion about the registration thing, I don't believe in that at all. Everything else, I'm not an expert on this stuff. It's up for debate. And I think that a lot of people are in the same boat, and a lot of people ought to have open conversations about it rather than these absolutes. So just to round it up, I haven't met anybody in the reptile community who agrees with the ban in Florida, or the potential ban, I should say, the Bill SB 906, the one in Canada that I don't even want to mention by the bill name to just kind of lessen the hate in the comments and the thumbs down reacts. But everything else, up in the air. I mean, the invasive species thing, there's got to be a way that we can curb this. We have to figure out what the actual problem is first and be honest about it, and to try to say, well, the only problem is that Mr. Bob over here bought 13 boa constrictors and anacondas and he let them loose, and that's not honest. So be honest about it. That's the point number 2, as if there's points to this rambling video. And number 3, self-police, right? Let's, as a community, band together and not be boneheads. Don't let your pet go in the wild, no matter where you live, for crying out loud. I don't care if it's a ball python and you live in Saskatchewan, it's gonna die. You're a jerk. Don't do that. I mean, I know it's not gonna create a problem with the ecosystem, but it's creating a problem because you're killing an animal. And I think anybody who's responsible isn't going to be putting the alligators down the sewer, right? So there's sewer alligators. That's a myth. But at the end of the day, I don't think anyone responsible is doing that. Nobody responsible is having a venomous collection without being able to make sure that they are the only ones who are taking the risk and they're not getting out and harming family members. No responsible person is going to be taking care of anything that they can't actually take care of in a good way, in a proper way, in an ethical way. And no responsible breeder is breeding lethal genes or genetics that are going to give that animal problems without a doubt. So let's find a way together to make sure irresponsible people get the heck out of the hobby. That is really the only way to solve any issues that we're trying to solve with bans. I don't know how we're going to do that, but I can't wait to read the comments. As always, smash the subscribe button if you like this video, because I do videos twice a week. That means I'll see you on Monday.